I didn't add myself to the stream. You can't see me, which is a good thing because my hair is kind of messed up today. I need to get a haircut. I got one of those free. This is your birth month. $8 haircuts at Sports Clips here, and the Round Rock, Georgetown, I guess Williamson County, is the birthplace of Sports Clips. So, the corporate headquarters is right. I believe they're up in Georgetown. I think, but don't quote me on that. But anyhow, I remember when they opened their first barbershop, their first salon, haircutting salon. I don't remember. Gosh, that must have been back about 2000, 2001. And was talking with the CEO, and what a great concept. And but they give you an $8 beard trim and haircut coming up here very shortly. So I will do that. I've got to take Helen's car into the shop tomorrow morning, get it taken care of. I had my pickup in, and tire rotation, oil change, oil filters, front end alignment, balancing all the wheels, all that kinds of stuff. Just so I had my pickup in today, and Helen's car goes in tomorrow. Just trying to make sure we're doing everything possible to make sure stuff lasts longer once SHTF happens, or Teotwalkie, whichever you prefer to call it. Hello, Mitch. Hello, Sue Me. Welcome. Christina Green. Welcome. Gosh, great to see you all. So anyhow, we do have only 3 more meetings on this book. What a great book! Not that thick, but it's got content like you would not believe. There is a link in the show notes. Strongly recommend that you get a copy of this book and add it to your library. Just great ideas. I think once we talk about a lot of them tonight, you're going to say, yeah, that's an essential, that's a must-have in my library. I do want to make a correction. I last night we were talking about Gog and Magog, and I quoted Isaiah, and it's not Isaiah, it's Ezekiel. So I just want to make sure. I like to check up on things after I say something and make sure I'm saying something correctly. But I did make a mistake. I said Isaiah, and it's actually Ezekiel who talks about Gog and Magog. Gog being, and so I did. Then of course that caused me to do a whole bunch of research this morning. And Gog and Magog are mentioned a total of about 4 or 5 times in the Bible. And so the first one is Gog. Let me check my notes here. So, gosh, where did I go here? If I can find my notes, I wasn't going to talk about it, but I figured I'd talk about it for a minute or two before we get to the. I know where I put it. I put the end of August notes. That's where I put it. Okay, so Noah had 3 sons: Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Japheth had 7 sons, and his second son's name was Magog. So that's the first place that Gog and Magog is mentioned. That's in Genesis 10, 1, 2. The second place is in Chronicles, 1 Chronicles 1:5, which is basically, remember that you've got the Old Testament. There are times when things are repeated, so 1 Chronicles 1:5 is a repetition of basically Genesis 10. Then in Genesis 11, it talks about Gog being a descendant of Reuben, and then in Ezekiel 38 and 39. That's where we start talking about the stuff that is end time stuff. So that's it says, "O son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog." So that says Gog is a man, Magog is a country. The prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, "Thus says the Lord God: Behold, I am against you, O Gog." And then again, it comes again in Revelations 27 through 9. And that's the only place in the Bible where Gog and Magog are mentioned together, other in the New Testament. But the thing here is that Armageddon or Megiddo is never mentioned in that same proximity of those occurrences. So, a lot of people who tell you that Gog and Magog is basically the final war, the Battle of Megiddo, the Battle of Armageddon, whichever you prefer, they are not necessarily associated in Revelation. So I just wanted to correct that from what I said last night and let you know that I don't want to. I want to make sure I give out only good information. Okay, so. Welcome. Gosh, we got 13 people here. Fantastic. Diana too, welcome. So let's get on with David Kobler's fantastic book, and also J.D. Dutra, I believe, United We Stand. building your emergency preparedness network. So chapter 5 is building trust and rapport. I think did I take it and put it back already? I don't know. Um, Probably one of the best books you're going to find on building trust and rapport. There are two outstanding ones. Um, Gosh, what's his name? I was even certified to teach it. Now I can't remember the name. But anyhow, the other one I'm also certified to teach is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he talks about the emotional bank account. And so he uses a check account as an example of, our trust or reliance or dependence upon other people, our ability to give them the benefit of the doubt. And so what happens is you start out with a neutral, you have 0. So you got to put things into their checking account on your behalf. So, when you show up on time, when you do what you tell them you're going to do, when you treat them with respect, when you listen to them, when you consider them, when you advocate for them, and things like that. Those are all things that have a positive effect on that emotional bank account. So you're building yourself up in their eyes because you're doing things for them. Now, every once in a while, we have to come back and say, you know what? You screwed up and you need to fix it. Now, if you do it in private and you do it in a way where they can regain their honor, that is a positive thing. If you do it in a negative way in front of a group of people and shut them down, then that is writing a check against that account that you've been building up. So, you can do something that's so detrimental to the relationship that you're overdrawn. You didn't do enough deposits, and now you're writing this check saying, I'm going to make you look bad in front of other people. Now you go into the negative, or you're overdrawn on that account, and that's where you have conflict. That's where conflict begins. So you want to make sure you try to keep that at least in a positive checking account status, and that is that you're doing things for them, with them, building up that trust. And so David has a different way of putting it, but it's essentially the same way. So he says, number 1 is effective communication. It's the cornerstone of building trust and support. So he says, listen to them. I mean, there's a guy I really, really like. Fantastic guy. We're friends on Facebook. But he listens to these late night talk show hosts. And so he comes up with some really aluminum foil hat theories. And he'll call me and say, what's your opinion? I'll take a breath and start to give my opinion. Then he tells me what my opinion is. And a half hour later, he's still talking, trying to convince me of what the late night talk show host said. And he doesn't want my opinion, or else he would have listened after he asked. So the last time that we did it, after 15 minutes of trying to say, wait a minute, I just hung up on him. And so he called me back. He says, did you hang up on me? I said, yes. I said, here's how it goes. If you're going to ask my opinion, he says, well, I really want your opinion. I said, then how come after 15 minutes after asking my opinion, you didn't give me an opportunity to give you my opinion? Why were you trying to sell me on your opinion? So that kind of shows you, that the emotional bank account was overdrawn. Okay. And that's where active listening comes in. You want to listen and hear what the other person has to say. You want to respect that, but it's going to come to a point where you're going to say, that's enough, no more. So, make sure you maintain eye contact. There's one guy that used to come into my store all the time. Never, ever would even face towards me when we were talking. And I don't know why, but he could not maintain eye contact. He wouldn't even look at me. He'd look off over here while he was talking to me over here. And so I finally just said, you know what? He wanted to renew his mailbox. I said, nah, I'm going to raise prices. He says, how much? I told him. He says, no, that's too expensive. I said, well, I'm sorry. So he felt that his leaving was his choice instead of mine. You can use verbal and nonverbal cues. So when you look interested, when you have an open posture, when you have a closed posture, your arms folded, or you're rolling your eyes, things like that. Those are gestures that are negative. Okay, but if you look intently at the person with interest and ask questions, clarifying questions especially, That's going to tell them that you're listening and you value what they have to say and you want to understand better what they are saying. Hello, Holly. I hope that you are home and well. Been saying a lot of prayers for you, so it's good to see you here. Avoid interrupting the other person. Okay. One of the things that we hate most in life is to be interrupted, especially if you haven't finished your thought yet. And then summarize what they're saying. So the way I do that is I say, now, if I understand what you're saying this, 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 and this. Did I get that correct? Don't try to analyze it. Don't try to do anything like that. Just repeat back what they said using other words to show them that you heard what they said and you have some understanding of what their intent is. So that's number one in establishing trust is communications. Ask lots of open-ended questions. Do you watch the Cold War Prepper? That's a yes or no. That's a closed-ended question. A better way to do that might be say, tell me the channels that you like to watch on YouTube. Now they're going to give you a list of channels. Okay. So you don't want yes or no questions. You want to where they're going to have to, give you some things. What caused you to become a prepper? What are your priorities in prepping? So if SHTF happened right now, what would your initial reaction be? What would your first steps be? Okay. Those types of questions that cause the person to think, and then you're going to practice your active listening to them as they respond. Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's great. And one of the things that you can do is you can always, when somebody says something, you can share your experience, only what is relevant and supports or adds information to their decision-making process. So if it's something you disagree with, say, and might I offer an alternative idea or an alternative suggestion or another way to do that, instead of saying, well, I disagree. Okay, the minute you say I disagree, you're going to turn the other person off. They're not going to listen. So if you say, may I offer an alternative opinion or may I offer another way of looking at that, now you're offering, you're showing them you understand, you just want to show an alternative. Okay, you're playing kind of a devil's advocate in a polite way. Don't do what the president did yesterday in Maui. So here he is visiting with people who have lost everything, their homes, their childhood pictures, their family Bible, their relatives, everything of value to them, possibly even their own personal identification. And he said, well, I had a house fire once in the kitchen, and that's nothing compared to what they're going through. It would have been better to say, empathize, hug them, cry with them, anything other than to diminish what they're experiencing. You want to show that you show feelings, you show empathy, you show understanding. We don't want to show pity. We want to show empathy, which is quite different. And that is that you're feeling their pain or feeling a semblance of their pain. And you're offering yourself as a tool, an outlet for them to get rid of some of that pain so you can hold them up. Probably the best example of that in history is if we go back to 1864, when Abraham Lincoln went to the battlefield at Gettysburg, and he went to the Gettysburg Cemetery. And remember, the Gettysburg Address is really his heartfelt feelings of understanding the loss, the significant loss of the parents, the siblings, the children, the spouses of the soldiers who died there. And so he had to build up the country, understand and appreciate and even exonerate or exalt the courage and the fortitude of the men who died there and the men who lost limbs and who were wounded there. So that's one of those things we have to do. We have to show ultimate respect, and people will follow you if you show them respect. That's one of the key rules. Don't be judgmental. Practice empathy. Acknowledge their expertise. Like y'all. I know I've been doing this for a long time. I don't know everything. And there are even some things that I may have wrong. And some of you have some strengths where I am extremely weak. And so for us to share those, you can learn from what I have experienced and I can learn from what you have experienced. And that's the opportunity to acknowledge that you have some areas of expertise that are just as valid, if not more valid, than my areas of expertise. Oh, Stray Kitten, you're talking about one of my favorite books, L. Frank Baum. And most people don't realize that was L. Frank Baum's reaction to establishing the Federal Reserve. And so that's actually a political book about the Federal Reserve. And the Yellow Brick Road, of course, is gold standard going to Oz. And the man behind the curtain, of course, is Congress. And then the Federal Reserve becomes that instrument where we really don't know what they do. They do everything in secret meetings, and they come out and tell us they're going to raise or lower interest rates. Of course, Dorothy had silver slippers. They changed them to ruby slippers in the movie because they just come out with Technicolor, and they wanted to show Technicolor red. But actually, in the book, she has silver slippers. And so you have the Scarecrow, which was the farmers out in the West who had no brain. You had the industrialists, which was the Tin Man, who had no heart. Everything was, pollution, building, industrializing, and everything else. And then the Cowardly Lion was, I forget his name. He was a congressman from the Midwest they thought was going to run for president, and they said that he had no courage to stand up to the Federal Reserve. Jennings, guy's name was Jennings, is the Cowardly Lion, who that represents. Okay, so discuss your reasons for prepping. When I talk with people, one of the first groups I joined was kind of a militia group. That's not what I'm interested in. I have no interest in establishing a militia, an armed force, or anything else. They were too far spread out anyway. I just want to have, do we have skills? Do we have ability to farm, to hunt, to cook, to store up, to preserve water, to clean water, to take care of healthcare of individuals and everything else? That's the kind of a community that I want. So you only get that by sharing. What are you looking for in a preparedness group? What am I looking for in a preparedness group? How are we going to interact? If we agree that we aren't on the same path, that we aren't fit to be together as a group, at least let's agree to support each other through our groups so that we aren't contentious, but rather supportive of each other. And that's what he's talking about here. And one of the things that you can do that is through collaboration, such as joint projects, an exchange of skills. So whether that be on an individual basis or whether that be on a group basis, you want to learn how to operate a ham radio. That's great. I would like to get a lot better first aid training, let's say. So I will teach you this if you will teach me that. So we're kind of bartering skills and teaching each other different things. So that's that exchange of skills. We can do the same thing in groups. So that guy who we didn't want to join, but we don't want to tick him off either, we can talk about, here are some things that we have set up. Here's kind of my communications plan. I'm not going to give him my CEOI, which is the Communications Electronic Operating Instructions. I'm not going to tell him my challenge and reply passwords. I'm not going to tell him my authentication tables. I'm not going to show him my actual encryption system, which is going to be an additive pad or a subtractive pad or even a code system. I will show him how he can generate his own, but I'm not going to let him see mine. Does that make sense? Because mine's kind of classified. I'll give them the basics of how to do it, but all those random letters and numbers, that's mine. That's not yours. Okay, so we can share the knowledge of how to do it, but not necessarily share the actual event. One of the things we can do is organize book clubs, like what we're doing here. Look at all the fantastic people here who are here for one reason, and that is to get more knowledge from what we are getting out of these books. Attend networking events and meetups. Helen and I were talking about it today. We went over to a shopping center, And she says, "That's a great restaurant." And I said, "Yeah, I've been there twice. There's a meetup of preppers here in the area." And so I went there the first time. I was the only person there. I mean, I was the only person in the restaurant for that entire hour. Then the second time they had one, I said, "Yeah, I'm going." I went. There was only one other person that was the organizer. I said, "You know what? This really isn't worth my time." And so we were talking about that today. She says, "Whatever happened to that?" I said, "Well, you're still asking." I saw one person respond yes, but I don't know how it's going because there's no sense going if there's only going to be one person. So um, isn't that the truth? Little Lone Pepper said she was becoming a tin woman, not just tinfoil hat wearer. Okay. And yeah, I think we all have our moments. So there are some times that I think the whole thing is that the Tin Man, the Tin Woodsman, in um, in Al Frank Baum's book, the Wizard of Oz, is basically productivity without emotion. Okay, productivity for productivity's sake, and then you've got the Scarecrow, who basically is doing mundane tasks, repetitive tasks that are mundane, farming, and so they figure that there's no uh, expertise to that. Well, I'll tell you what, try to raise a crop. Go out and plant some seeds today and see how successful you are. All those 10 men could not farm, and the farmers, of course, cannot manufacture, but we need to support each other. And that's why this made such a great cohesive team. Uh, and let me see here. Be approachable. Present yourself as being friendly. Smile. As a matter of fact, I was talking to my what do they call them? Service representative, I guess, at the Toyota dealership today, and I said, the main reason of all the people here, the number one reason why I chose you to be my representative was because you had a smile on your face. So I like being around people who smile, and that's just me, and I do things, kind of weird things, to get people to smile. So one of the things in Spanish, you say "Cómo está?" "Cómo estás?" How are you? I don't. I say "Cómo estoy?" How am I? And then they'll correct me. They'll say, "No, no, no, no. You're supposed to say "Cómo estás?" I said, "Pero yo pregunto." But I asked, "Cómo estoy?" How am I? Okay. So I do the same thing in English. I say, "How am I?" And they'll say, "Fine. How are you?" I said, "I've already asked that question." And look at me and go, "Oh," So um, just little things to get people off their guard, get them to engage in conversation, get them to smile, get them to think, get them to laugh if possible. That's what really we need more of in this world. I was talking to Helen, and then we have this neighborhood thing where all Facebook, neighborhood, YouTube, Twitter, all people are doing is complaining. And I said, I am convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that that attack from Mars Attacks movie from the 50s, where they beamed these radio waves down on the human beings. I think somebody way out there in space is sending these hate beams down on us. People are driving. People are just unbelievably aggressive. People are quick to condemn, trolls, people giving people a hard time on YouTube, on Facebook, on X, on you name it. People are just so quick to condemn, so quick to correct, and we're slow to love and slow to respect and slow to admire. And that's I'm looking for somebody who I can stand behind because I feel that they're going in a positive direction, and I feel that they're giving me something that's uplifting and positive and motivational. And that's the kind of leader we need in a group, is somebody who's going to give us something to work towards, not to avoid some bad, but to give us hope for the future. And follow me type. That's what the infantry says, is follow me. I'm the leader. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to show you the way, and I'm going to show you how it's done. I'm going to get there. I'm just going to ask you to follow me and take the challenge and go with me. instead of somebody who's pushing you in that direction. It's easier to follow somebody who's out front than it is somebody who's behind you pushing you. So that's kind of the whole idea that David's promoting here. Show networking etiquette. Be polite and respectful when interacting with other people. Hello, Faxorus. How are you? Show appreciation when people show their knowledge. What I do, I have... So the Association of the Miraculous Metal has these nice little pamphlets about the history of the miraculous metal. And then it's got one that's blessed and the story behind it and the saint who initiated it and everything else. And so a lot of times when somebody does something good for me, I'm going to bless them and I'm going to hand them a miraculous metal. I've got, gosh, I got a couple hundred of these lying around. This is what I keep with me all the time, is this stack here. But I just like to hand those out. I also have a coin that it's just a blue coin that just says, "Thank you, you're special." And so I can give that to people when they do something nice for me. And I think people like being appreciated. So anything you can do to let other people know, hey, you are great. I had noticed how great you are and I appreciate you. There's just going to be so much on that. So at a networking, give them your business card, show respect to their business card, ask them questions about their job and be interested in what they do, and show respect for that. Be mindful of their time, be mindful of the surroundings, be mindful of other people wanting to get with them as well. And, have your business card ready so you can hand it to them and say, I would love to have coffee with you sometime in the future when it isn't so crowded and I can pick your brain. If you're interested, please give me a call. May I have your card? May I give you a call? And ask permission to give them a call. Okay. And that's that exchanging contact information you talk about. And then follow up, call them. Some of the red flags: aggressive people, manipulative people, trolls, people who are correcting, people who have a frown on their face, people, standoffish people, people who don't respect boundaries. If they're cutting you off, butting you in. One of the things I did once, it really caught me off guard, caught the group off guard. I had these business cards that looked like folded $100 bills. So it looked like a folded $100 bill when it was closed, and then you opened it up and it had my business card on the inside. And I would drop them on the floor at business meetings. And I saw this woman, she walked over and she stepped on it. And she looked around to see if anybody was looking. And then she bent over and picked it up because she thought it was a real $100 bill. And she put it in her purse. And so I waited and waited. She didn't ask anybody if anybody dropped the money, right? And so after the end of the meeting, I walked up to her and said, "What'd you think of my business card?" She says, "What business card?" And I said, "I gave you my business card. You took it." She said, "No, I didn't." I said, "Yes, you did. You thought it was a $100 bill. It was on the floor." Oh man, it just drained out of her face. That's the kind of sneaky person you don't want to do business with. Okay. Wait, let's see what we got going on here. Oh, wow, that's terrible. I heard today, I listened to Catholic radio, and I heard today that we have broken the record for the number of 10 through 13-year-old suicides. That is now at one of the highest levels that the U.S. has ever seen. 10 to 13-year-olds. They don't even know life yet. They don't know how great life can be, and they're already considering suicide. Oh my gosh, is that terrible? But yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right, Little Known Preppers. There aren't enough people out there giving us hope, giving us inspiration, giving us something to live for. All we hear is negative news and things that are wrong. We need to build up and give hope to the next generation. Lead by example. Give them something to look forward to. Don't be inconsistent in your stories or in your history or anything like that. Be consistent in what you say and say the truth. Don't overemphasize secrecy. Share with them and they'll share with you. Be careful of people with criminal records. Now, this is a pet peeve of mine. When I was in HR, part of my philosophy is, if somebody does something wrong and we take them to court and the court says you did this wrong and we're going to punish you for it, your punishment is we're going to stick you in an 8x10 cell for 3 years. We stick them in that cell for 3 years. We don't know the deprivation that they go through being in that cell for 3 years. They come back out, and then we're going to hold it against them that they were punished. The punishment has been paid. Now we need to reaccept them back into society so that we don't have any, what do they call that when they commit the same crime over again or they go back to jail? Recidivism. We don't want to have any recidivism. And quite often, these people become desperate. They can't find jobs. Nobody wants to hire them because they paid back the penalty for doing what they did. And now we're going to hold the penalty, the paying back of the penalty against them. So we need to start thinking about it. Now, there are some that, honest to God, I think are unforgivable. Child abuse, child molestation. I would never, there's never a way I could ever give that kind of a person a job. So yeah, and I'm not that, I know this isn't very Christian of me. I'm really not that concerned on how they're going to make out in the future because they have destroyed a poor child's life. And so I'm going to hold that against them and forgive me for that. Chapter 6, nurturing long-time relationships. God, we're doing pretty good. 30 minutes and we're halfway through. 32 minutes. Hold monthly meetups. Give a newsletter. Do a YouTube channel. Have online discussion forums. Do a vlog. Do a blog. Do a constant contact email type letter. There are all kinds of things that you can do. There's group boards and Facebook and all kinds of ways you can keep up with people and be consistent in it. I'm trying to be consistent in my Monday and Tuesdays. I'm trying to do my Saturday prepper pantry hauls. That's the consistency part. Right now, I've got a series of about 7 or 8 using Bear Creek Country soups as a basis for a nail soup or a stone soup, whichever you prefer to call. I've got those out. I just put one out just before I did this. We came to this live. This last one was vegetable beef. I realized that I have never tried Keystone beef, ground beef. So I ordered a can and had it delivered overnight, and so I can put that in the video today. My first experience with Keystone beef. I don't know if it's any good or not. People say it is. I've never used it. They don't sell it here in this Central Texas area. I have not found a store yet that carries it. So I had to order it off Amazon. Practice. Do drills. What are you going to do if type things? There are families, they just did, I think Fort Riley, Kansas, just did, maybe it's coming up, maybe they just did it, I'm not sure which, but they basically turned off the electricity on Fort Riley for 24 hours and said, what are we going to do if? So, doing those kinds of drills are going to become extremely important to you. Attend webinars, attend classes. In September, we have National Preparedness Month. I have agreed once again to do a video for that. And so there's going to be 30 days of preparation, 30 different preparedness channels, each one talking about a different subject. Rogue Preparedness is the one who organizes it. And so I think I'm on day, let me see. I didn't write it down. But anyhow, I've got one night in September. So we'll be doing basically, I'll do a video. I won't release it. I'll do a, what do they call that? Where you're in the background while the video is showing and you have it kind of like a live. So I'll do one of those. Show mutual support. Anytime you show mutual support, show respect. If you have a disagreement, be respectful in your disagreement. Nothing is terminal. Well, few things are terminal. Let's put it that way. Celebrate milestones as you do certain things. Once you get to the point where you have, let's say, you've got your ham radio license, you've got your ham radio setup and everything. Throw a party, celebrate it. Invite your rest of your preparedness people over and show them and say, you too can do this. Or once you've got your rain catchment system installed, invite people over and say, you too can do this. This is something that we'll have as a community for us to have clean water after something happens. So celebrate those successes, and find a reason to celebrate other people's successes as well. Um, Share resources and knowledge. I've got a 55-gallon drum on the side of the house. I've got this 350-gallon one on the back of the house. I told the people in my group that 55-gallon drum is theirs. So anytime they want to come over, they can come over and tap into that 55-gallon drum. That's their water. It's there for them. They're going to take care of purification and everything else. So go at it. That's there for you. Thank you, Little Lone Prepper. That's great. I appreciate that. Let me see. And that was the whole point of the discussion today, Fioxerus, was they were talking about the number of parents who are taking their children to the ER who are suicidal or who have anxiety and depression. And of course, the ER is not set up for pediatric psychiatry. And you need to get them in to see a psychiatric pediatrician or a pediatric psychiatrist, whichever way you want to take a look at it. But those are the people who are going to specialize in that. Of course, we aren't doing them any favors by adding in all this gender dysphoria stuff and everything else and increasing the pressure on them to grow up and be an adult. So one of the things they talked about today as well was we aren't allowing children to be children. When I was in school, we had a 15-minute recess in the morning. We had a 15-minute recess in the afternoon. None of us took Ritalin. But then they did away with recess, shortened the school day by half an hour. Now you got little boys who are, prepubescent, who have, just natural proclivity to fiddling and moving and everything else. They need to get outside and get rid of that pent up energy. And we're sitting them in a chair and then we're saying, you're overactive. We're going to medicate you. No, send them out to the playground, let them run it off, and then bring them back in and have them study again. So, at that half hour of recess, 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon, were so, so, so important to us. And, just being a family. One of the things, I saw the change. When I was younger, we used to play out on the streets until the sun went down and the street lights came on. And the parents would be out on the patio drinking iced tea and chatting with the other parents. And then we had this thing come out called television, and it really got big. We had 3 channels, ABC, CBS, and NBC. And we had all 3 in El Paso, Channel 4, Channel 9, and Channel 13. And so all of a sudden, everybody wasn't out playing anymore, and the parents weren't out talking with the neighbors anymore. We were all inside, glued to these electronic contraptions. And then, of course, my parents bought this thing they sold at Sears that had blue on top. It was a plastic acetate sheet you could fix onto your black and white TV screen. It was blue on the top, clear in the center, and then green down at the bottom, so that it looked like grass was green. And of course, nothing ever fit those 3 colors, as far as the dimensions on the screen, but you kind of thought it was great. And then all of a sudden they came out with color TV. Gosh, how much time do we spend outdoors anymore? And we don't. And so that's one of the things you can do is just be out there with your neighbors. Do you know the people who are walking their dogs on a regular basis? Do you know your neighbors' names? And so I encourage you, participate in National Night Out. It's coming up in October. Fire safety drills, medical emergency drills, power outage simulations, lost in the wilderness drills, water procurement. There's 5 pages of outstanding ideas on things you can do with your family or with your community to get together to plan how are we going to survive what we have coming up next. And then at the end, he talks about volunteer activities and community service projects. So the one that I'm really active in is St. Vincent de Paul. And so St. Vincent de Paul is basically, we go out and help people who are having financial hardships or need help. And so last week I visited 4 neighbors, and this week I have scheduled to visit 2 more. And that's what we call them, is neighbors. We don't call them the poor or anything like that. We just call them neighbors. And St. Vincent de Paul said that, when he was roaming the streets of Paris, feeding, clothing, feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, um, befriending those who had no friends. And so that's the whole purpose behind Saint Vincent de Paul, is to help those people who need something positive in their life, and we can provide that. And so that's my how I do my things. Uh, so I do that. I teach RCIA, which is the catechism for people who are converting to Catholicism. And what else do I do? Oh, I'm a member of the Divine Mercy Cynical here in town. And so Saint Faustina, uh, Maria Kowalska Faustina from Poland, she came up with the Divine Mercy, and through an apparition of so every day at 3 o'clock, which is supposedly the time that Christ died on the cross, we say a special prayer, a chaplet, in memory of Christ dying on the cross. And we believe that we can ask for intercession for some people who have passed, and we can get some intercession for ourselves and forgiveness of sins. So that's kind of what I do. I take an active role in all of those different things. And that's what we can do as a community to work together to take care of each other. I was telling, we had well, I told you last night, we have to meet. St. Vincent de Paul meets every other week from 6 to 7:30. And so we had our meeting last night, and I shared my dream that I had Saturday night. I don't know, one of the weirdest dreams I've ever had in my life. I had a dream that I won a small lottery, and I had just enough money to where I could go to Little Caesars Pizza and buy 100 pepperoni pizzas, and then go to visit every neighbor that we have visited in the last couple months, and just hand them a pepperoni pizza and say, happy whatever day. We love you. Here's something you may not have had in a while, a nice little pizza just to keep you happy. And but wouldn't that be great if we could just surprise somebody with something like that, just a cheap little $7 pepperoni pizza? Can you imagine what that would do to somebody else, especially somebody who hasn't had one in a year or two? So those are just some of the things that we can do as human beings, to uplift others, to put them before us, and to build up our community, and to get people together so that we can collectively, as a group, survive the trials and tribulations that we know are coming. Belarus, the State Department put out that they are advising that all U.S. citizens in the European Union, advised all all EU citizens to vacate Belarus. The EU said that war is imminent. So, take that as a warning shot. You make sure your prepping is taken to a level that's going to allow you to survive that. Let me see. Little on Prepper says, I bought a community water system. It's used in villages where there's no fresh water for schools and clinics. Wow. Yes, absolutely. And that's what I'm talking about. So think of other people other than just yourself. So I cannot stand oatmeal. I cannot eat it. Um, for some reason, the consistency just in my mouth, just ugh, it just I can't eat it. But I buy it. Why do I buy it? Because I have these little packets, these little envelopes of oatmeal that I can give to somebody who comes to my door who's hungry, and I can give them a meal without exposing anything else that I have. And same thing with a small can of Vienna sausage, a small can of the 6-ounce can of fruit cocktail or something like that. I can give away the small things that's going to help somebody without giving the impression that I'm eating a whole bunch inside the house. So, what are you doing to take care of your neighbor as much as you are taking care of yourself? You can win them over and have the beginnings of a fantastic group if they know they can trust you, if they know that you're going to help them and that you have their best interest at heart. because that's where governments typically have failed in the past. Um, Thank you, Diana. Too. Yeah, I think we over medicate our children. I think it just put them out in the playground. Um, you are so right, let alone prepper. Social media and our education system. We no longer teach children what to or how to think. We teach them what to think. One of my favorite examples was um, Helen and I were talking once, and so she was what's called an inclusion teacher. So she was there to take care of the special ed children in the classroom, but nobody was supposed to know that she was a special ed teacher. So she was kind of focusing on them without them knowing that her specialty was special education. And the teacher was talking about when you see this question on the state test, the answer is this. They didn't talk about it. They just said, if you see this question, the answer is this. That's how they taught it. They taught the test. And so we don't teach, that's why civics is becoming so important. One of the things I want to do, and I printed it out today, is we're going to do our civics class. Somebody asked me, when are you going to start that? I've got my lesson plan started, and that's going to start off with, what were you thinking? So quite often when somebody makes a mistake, we say, oh my God, what were you thinking? What caused you to do that? But when people do great things like create the Constitution, we don't say, what were you thinking? Why did you say this? That district court decision yesterday that says the Second Amendment says you have the right to bear arms. So they're interpreting arms as being knives, tomahawks, mace, nunchucks, guns, everything. That's a significant improvement in our system, where the justice system says, yeah, let's go back and understand, what did they mean by the words when they wrote them? And that's what we have to interpret. And but anyhow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with that first one of what was the history, what was going on around the world, what was going on in the US, why did we write the laws the way that we did? Then after that, we're going to do 4 different sessions of 25 citizenship questions. There's a bank of 100, and these are the 100 questions that people who want to naturalize to become American citizens have to answer in order to become an American citizen. So we're going to do 25 of those questions each session for 4 different sessions. Then we're going to get into the Constitution. Helen, did you want to? You look like you wanted to say something. No? Okay. Get them off the video games too. Absolutely. We have turned into, cell phones and Xbox and everything else being electronic babysitters, and it's creating an artificial world that we need to get rid of. Yes, at the park, I can't tell you. I'm afraid I'm going to get back cancer, melanoma in the back, because I can't tell you how many summers I had terrible sunburns from being at the swimming pool all day, playing baseball. I mean, um, I'm terrible. I am not a sportsman, but I love just being out there with my friends and playing ball, and skateboarding. I had a black dog, Cindy. She was a Heinz 57 variety, and but Cindy, I would put a leash on her. She loved to run, and I had this brand new skateboard when skateboards first came out, and that little red wooden thing, and with the trucks on them, and I would put Cindy on the leash, and she'd pull me around the neighborhood on my skateboard. That was so much fun, and riding a bike and all that kinds of stuff. My gosh, we don't have that anymore. Uh, okay, so that's kind of where we are. We finished chapters 5 and 6. We've got 7 and 8 coming next week. 7 and 8 are going to be um, organizing and participating in local events, and then the digital age of emergency preparedness. And then starting in September, the first Tuesday in September, we'll do additional tips for long-term support. And then the conclusion, building a resilient community. Hopefully next week, I will give you the name of the book, the nonfiction book we're going to do this after this one. And if you have any suggestions or a book that you really, really want to discuss and you would really like to see us do, please send me an email and recommend that book. I would greatly appreciate it. I have my favorites, but I want to make sure that you get well served as well. Uh, and we've made mistakes, and so let's admit the mistakes. We've corrected a lot of almost 99% of our mistakes we've corrected, and so let's admit where we were wrong, correct it, and move on. And let's focus on what we can do in the future instead of what we've done wrong in the past. And just remember what we've done wrong in the past. We don't recommit it, and then let's move on. Um, Yes, absolutely. Mike McGee and the Hindens, Leonard Hinden, he became a firefighter in El Paso. His dad was a firefighter, and Kathy Hinden, his twin sister, uh, just they were great people. Betsy Osgood, she was my first crush. Uh, and because in the eighth grade we had boys and girls in the same class. It's the only time that we had boys and girls in the same class was eighth grade. And I remember going to her house and listening to the Beatles, the first Beatles album with her at her house. And such great times doing, dancing and outside and playing. And oh my gosh, that's great memories. Um, Oh, I'm so jealous, Little Lemon Pepper. Yeah, and when I went up to my cousins in for the summer, mom would send me up there, and they lived on a farm. All my mother's side of the family were farmers in Missouri, and I went up, and my cousin Bobby and I would go fishing or go blackberry picking blackberries, and then my cousin Steve and I would do things, and uh, you know, just it's such a great time out in the country. And I remember Bobby and I were trying to shoot a squirrel one time with a 22. I didn't realize how much an owl is 95% feather, 3% bone and 2% meat. It's just, you can hit it several times, but you got to hit it smack dab center in the head in order to get an owl. It's something else, but maybe I wasn't that good of a shot either. But it's a good experience. It was a fun experience, and it's hard to believe. I was 12 or 13 years old, and here my cousin and I are out with a 22, look, out shooting things. Nobody would ever think of that today. Uh, Hello, Matthew. Welcome from Iowa. Um, Oh my gosh, Helen and I were talking about that here just the other day. When we first moved here after I retired from the Army, my first job after I retired from the Army was Houston, and then they promoted me and moved me up to the headquarters here in Austin. They paid for me to come up here, and that was working for a state agency. I was the HR director, and so when we bought our house, the area in between, which is now all apartments and houses, they had a forest fire there. My dad's birthday, July 4th, somebody set off some fireworks. It took 17 fire engine companies to put out that fire from the fireworks. And there weren't even enough roads. We had to go overland to get my dad out of there to go home. The major east-west road was only 3 lanes, and 1 lane each direction with the center turn lane. Now it's 4 lanes each direction. No center turn lane, but it's got 4 lanes each direction, and they're building a major intersection on the I-35 because that's become one of the bottlenecks for people working in Austin and driving down there. We bought, in the first neighborhood we were in, we bought a model home when it was halfway built, and then when we were in the we sold that and moved up to a bigger house that was also a model home, and but this was the model. Um, so it was the last one sold in that neighborhood, and we lived there for almost 20 years. Then we downsized. We sold that one and moved here, and so that whole area, gosh, I used to love driving when I worked up with the electric co-op. I loved driving down this one particular road because it reminded me of being in Germany in the military. This nice little road right next to a creek, and there was, brush and trees and everything, and just it felt so good driving down that country road. And now you got the creek on one side, you've got nothing but apartment complexes on the other. Even the trees are gone. And you go, oh gosh, so much has been lost. Um, oh, blackberries. Look at that. Just like my cousin Bobby and I. Yep, absolutely. I've got a pepper ready to go. I think it's going to be, I'm going to pick it next day or two. Um, and that's the truth. I was afraid, they say Catholicism is the religion of guilt. And I would always let them know that I did something wrong before they had a chance to find out from somebody else, because I always felt that if I told them I made a mistake, that the punishment would be less severe than if somebody else told them that I made a mistake and I had to hide it from them, or that I was trying to hide it from them. But that's kind of how I grew up. We got all our tomatoes earlier. We got a second batch in of tomatoes. The bluebirds got them. So I took some CDs out and I've hung up my CDs over my tomato plants, and hopefully that'll keep them away. I've got one. Uh, I don't know what it is. Something got to it. I think it was probably a squirrel. I don't think it was a bird, but the new beefsteak tomato that I had is gone. And but I did catch a rabbit out in the side yard, in the greener grass area where we have a little bit of water uh, pooling. And I did catch a rabbit out there this morning, so I may have some rabbits that are getting into my tomatoes. I don't know if they can get up that high to get it or not, but that may be the problem. Um, so Butch says, yeah, it's called canning. Uh, let me see. Okay, so that's pretty much where we are. Thoughts, questions, ideas, comments. Make sure you keep yourself safe and keep your head down. I have a feeling that we're in for some rough times here in the near future. Um, Gosh, and as the political season continues to expand, there's going to be more and more animosity. There's going to be less and less understanding, less and less um, willingness to listen. You know, People want to talk and they don't want to listen, and that's going to be a terrible thing. So, yeah, gosh, can I share a fantastic in my studies? Of course, I'm studying Mark right now, but I came across something I really really like in my morning devotional this morning. They gave me one that's really fantastic. It's Psalm 37. Would like to share this with you, if I may. So this is going to be verses 12 through 20. I think I would like to call this the prepper's prayer. Okay. It just serendipitous that it happened today. But it says, the wicked plot against the righteous and gnash their teeth at them. But my Lord laughs at them because he sees that their day is coming. The wicked unsheath their swords and they string their bows to tell the poor and the oppressed, to slaughter those whose way is upright. Their swords will pierce their own hearts, and their bows will be broken. Better the meagerness of the righteous one than the plenty of the wicked. The arms of the wicked will be broken, while the Lord will sustain the righteous. The Lord knows the days of the blameless. Their heritage lasts forever. They will not be ashamed when times are bad. In days of famine, they will be satisfied. The wicked will perish, enemies of the Lord. They shall be consumed like fattened lambs, like smoke. They will disappear. So I think, that's kind of saying to me, you know, make sure your heart is where it needs to be. Make sure your heart is there to take care of the good people, to make sure that you don't have any wickedness in yourself, that you're not setting yourself up to abuse other people, to use other people, that you're there with an open heart, helping others and showing them that there is a better way, that we can listen to each other. We can uh, give respect, admiration, understanding to each other, that we can build each other up, that we can build a better future. And I think that's what the world needs right now, is we need more of us out there setting a more positive tone. So let me check one more time. Let me put my glasses back on so I can read the screen. Oh, by the way, my last eye doctor appointment, um, my eyes are getting bad, and so I'm going to. He told me to change my prescription for my reading glasses, and I'm going from a 1.5 to a 2.0. So we'll see how that goes. Um, you're quite welcome, Theoxorus. That we need a lot more positivity out there. Um, I the Russians love beets, and one of their national foods is borscht. And so the only time I've ever eaten a beet was actually in borscht. I have not been a fan of them, and I think the reason I have not been a fan of them, I never tried them. I wasn't that enamored with Brussels sprouts, and then my son-in-law fixed some in garlic and garlic butter, and just it was phenomenal. So now, so Helen took me to Texas Roadhouse, no, Longhorn Steakhouse. Helen took me to Longhorn Steakhouse for my birthday, and I ordered Brussels sprouts to go with my steak. So I mean, things can change. When I graduated from college, I was stationed in Augsburg, Germany, and so oh gosh, I may run over a little bit longer, but let me show you something. Um, I did this last night. And I'll do this one here. So let me go here, and I'm going to do Fuel Station Augsburg. This is one of my favorite assignments. And then we're going to do a images. So yeah, we'll do that one there. And then I'm going to come back here and right here. And then I'm going to share screen. So this is one of my two favorite assignments in the Army that I ever had. And I showed you Fuel Station Berlin yesterday. And so today I'm going to show you Fuel Station Augsburg. And so this is it showing? You see. There we go. So this is Fuel Station Augsburg. Here. Come on, let me get here. There, it should show that one. Let me stop that one, and let me come back here. And I want to go here and share screen. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. It says it works best when you have two screens. So there we go. So share, and we're going to share this. Okay, so this one here, you got different views of it, but this is an AN-FLR9 HF-DF array. So that's a high frequency DF antenna. And I don't see, yeah, here we go. So here you have the actual fuel station itself. So my office was down here in this area. And that was primarily VHF, UHF, SHF intercept. And then all the HF stuff was down in here. And then analysis was here. This was our cafeteria here. So imagine there were, at any one time, there were 1,000 people working in this building at any one time. This was headquarters where the general was. And you can see over here, this is the parking lot. So you can kind of have a relative idea of how big this is. We call the AN-FLR9, the Flare 9 antenna array, as ground zero for a Scud, which at that time was the nuclear tactical nuclear warhead that the Soviets had. So just that's another one of those great experiences. Fuel Station Augsburg, United States Army Fuel Security Agency, Fuel Station Augsburg. What a great assignment. Okay, so remember, thank you all so much for being here. Let me see what Little Lone Prepper said here real quick. Absolutely. I'm not so sure that I can help that much, but we can think it through together. Okay. And oh, there's a new name. Thank you, ma'am or sir. Have a great evening. And all right. So for the same reason, that's great. Fantastic. Okay. Remember, we're all in this together so we can come out the other end together. please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other, because togetherness is the key. And gosh, um, yes, radio direction finding. That's the AN/FLR-9. There was an actual international array of HFDF antennas. So we were just one of 9 that existed in the world. So anyhow, thank you all for being here. What a great group of people. And do me a favor, hit the share. Also hit the like button, and I would greatly appreciate that. We will see you Saturday. I'll do my haul video, and then next Monday night we'll meet again for the open discussion. Everybody have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye. Get rid of all these notifications here so I can get to the end broadcast. I've got probably 19 different videos that I need to catch up on. Take care, everybody. Have a nice evening.